Now, all of you might have already seen it, but the presidential debate happened just a couple days ago, and it was a colossal failure to the surprise of almost absolutely no one. Now, people did speculate that this was going to be like a big disaster, but it was way worse than I feel like anyone could ever expect. We're going to be watching it. We're going to really see just how awful it truly is. Now, I will be playing this in 1.25 because, these are, two older guys. They're going to be like talking very slow for the most part. But I also don't want it to be like super difficult to hear them because it's already impossible to understand Biden during this whole thing. So we're just going to get right into it.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
And one thing that's going to be a big hang-up for Biden, and we kind of just saw it with the walk-in, is like his face. It almost feels like he's falling apart when you look at his face sometimes. And like it feels like he doesn't understand the fact that the cameras are always on him, even when he's not talking for the most part. They're still gonna make sure to try to capture him on camera, and it doesn't look great for him. We'll get to like the big problems with both of these candidates towards the end. I will be stopping every now and again, more than likely after they talk, to discuss what they talked about. There's probably gonna be some parts that I skim out because they're just not that important, honestly. And it's just gonna like be repetitive stuff. Like this debate was a disaster, and there's just a lot of stuff that just did not need to be in there that I'm gonna try to edit out of the video.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Just have this walk. I forget what they were called. I probably should have looked it up before I started watching this. But I described his walk to a friend as the walk of one of those giant stone creatures from like Super Mario, the ones that would like belly flop onto you. Like just very stiff and sluggish.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do was try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out in the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come from a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. The price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos. Literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for an insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you, President Trump.
And here's the thing. Now, I sped this up. And when you kind of speed him up a bit, he sounds like he's more collected. A little bit, his voice still sounds terrible. Like, it sounds god-awful. You can't really understand a lot of what he's saying because, like, you just can't hear him. And this is, like, one out of two people that we're supposed to vote for to be president, and I can't even understand him when he has, like, a mic presented by one of the major news organizations, and yet you can still barely make out what he says. He fumbles with his words a lot throughout this entire debate. But again, we'll get towards this with the end, but like Biden definitely did not look great here. And the polls reflected that. He had like a 30 something percent, 30% of the people who watched thought he looked good, but most people thought Trump looked better by the end of this.
Trump?
We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates. That was a disaster.
Yeah, just don't ask us who created the COVID mess. Also, like, I know I said I was gonna wait till they stop talking. I'll probably like skip through this part because like, I don't know. It's a tricky situation with the whole thing, especially with this thing. But like, Trump definitely created the COVID mess. But at the same time, and this is something that I've seen from a lot of Biden supporters, they're like, "Oh, Trump lied a lot," and that's true. He did lie a lot, especially when we get into like the later parts of the debate. He just kind of like he doesn't really say much. It's just kind of nonsense. But like, he was presentable. You could hear him. He didn't fumble with his words. Yeah, he said a lot of stupid stuff, but his base is not going to care. But in terms of who looks more competent as a president, Trump, in terms of the way he carries himself, did, compared to the fucking guy who you could barely, make a lot of the words that he was saying out. Like, you could barely hear what he was saying. And I hate that I had to say that in favor of this fucking guy. But again, we'll get back to that later in the end.
For our country, but other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
Like I already said, like, he says, "Oh, I got us out of that COVID mess, and I deserve the credit." But it's like, who got us into that mess? Like, there's evidence of you literally being like, "I didn't want to make COVID a big issue because I was afraid that people would panic." And it ended up with us getting quarantined for months and months and months on end, and so many people dying. So he wants to say like, "Oh, I got us out of the COVID mess." You started the fucking thing.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
You want allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months, and then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing...
Yeah, surprisingly, tax cuts are just not great for, relieving the wealthy of paying taxes, which they barely do anyways. It's not exactly great for middle class people. Also, like, yeah, tariffs are greatly gonna hurt us more than like just hurting the people that you're trying to cut off. Or as you claim, ripping us off. Like, it's already like back when he did it, like during his first run, it didn't go great. Like, prices still soar. It's just nonsense.
Facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before.
And also firing those people when they were getting record highs. Like, it. I already said I was gonna wait till they're done talking, but still, he can say all this like, "Oh, he gave so much back to our businesses," but that's not reflective in the working class, who very much did struggle during that time. Like, that's complete bullshit.
And we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had
it kind of takes time for people to die of a disease. They don't just, suddenly start disappearing left and right. It takes time for the disease to corrode within them, which, could have been avoided if you took it seriously, which you didn't.
Far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out.
I also love how he's like, you can't take credit for bounce back jobs. You can't take credit for that, but you can take credit for all the people who died after they got infected with a disease that I ignored, who more than likely got sick during my administration and just so happened to have died when you took office. Also, some of those people who just died refused to take the vaccine. Most of those people are on your side.
Which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion dollars, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
Oh my God!
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President.
Okay, Jesus Christ. I was gonna say this towards the end, but I might as well just say it now. This is why people thought he did so bad. Not even thought, he did do very bad. He is supposed to be a presidential candidate, and his mental facilities just aren't there, clearly. That's the big problem with this. This is why people thought Trump looked better out of this. Because, first off, and here's the thing, I already said this beforehand, he does look worse during the later parts, but he sounds coherent. He doesn't stumble on his words. He stays on topic to the question at hand, which he doesn't maintain throughout the rest of the debate. But most people aren't probably going to be tuning in towards the end. But Biden is struggling. He lost his train of thought. He spent most of that minute just not able to collect himself. This looks bad. This looks terrible. I've seen so many people, especially liberals, even after this and before this, they were just like, oh, all of you are shitting on Biden. All you're shitting on Biden, but he's not Trump. He's not Trump. Trump lies. Trump does all this stuff. And it's just first of all, a lot of the serious stuff, a lot of the big topics, Biden is not that far away from Trump on. They both support Israel. They both want to keep immigrants out. They both have similar views on immigration now, it's not that different. Trump is definitely worse in a lot more cases, but like defending Biden is not the way you should be looking at this. Like the best case scenario, if you're on the left or you're a Democrat, is being like, we need to replace him. We need to get someone else, someone hopefully younger or at least like, has more of a lively energy to them. Because Jesus Christ, he can't do it, and this is only like 10 minutes into the debate.
President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
I mean, just first off, it's funny for him to be like, oh, they want to get rid of Medicare, they want to get rid of Social Security. So does your side. What are you talking about? So do you. Like, your side does not like social safety nets at all. What are you talking about? And also, like, again, I always talk about this when Trump brings it up. A lot of people were making fun of us when you were president. Like, Trump becoming president was a sign to a lot of people, not from the U.S., that we were a joke. Like, they already thought of us as a joke, but, like, when we hire a fucking reality show host as our president, yeah, it makes us look dumb, especially someone like him.
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, and getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result. It was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you.
I mean, there's several things wrong with that. First off, like, just going back to the whole, like, states' right thing is completely disgusting. Him saying that it was popular, like, you know, getting rid of Roe v. Wade was popular. No, it wasn't. It wasn't popular. It was not a popular thing at all. Not even, especially from people on the left. People on the left did not find it popular. What is he saying? Also, this has been debunked multiple times, but saying, like, you know, 8 months, 9 months, they misconceptualize that of being like, even if it's a fully healthy baby, they're just gonna kill it. No. The only reason that abortions happen in the 3rd trimester, and it's very rare if they even happen then, is because it's not viable. Like, the baby is more than likely not going to survive, or the life of the mother is literally at risk. Andrew Schultz, the comedian, he literally put out a tweet like after this. He was just like, because he believed what Trump said, that it just happens during the third trimester. And he was like, outside of, like, outside of the reasoning of the mother's life being at risk, what excuse is there? And so many people were like, that's literally the only reason why it happens. It doesn't happen for any reason outside of that. Do you honestly think a woman is going to carry a baby for 8 to 9 months and just all of a sudden be like, nah, I don't want it anymore? Like, why would they carry it for most of the time and just get rid of it? Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, there's so much wrong with that. And again, him going to, like, states' rights, which, like, by the way, if you're trying to make an argument for your case, it's probably best not to leave Ohio in it. This is from someone who is in Ohio. We are not the best example to show that things are going great, because we are never going great.
President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea.
And by the way, before he continues, this should be an easy layup for him. This should be an easy slam dunk. And he's doing all right. Again, he's stumbling on his words already, which isn't a great sign. This should be an easy layup for him. But yeah, he's right. It wasn't an unpopular thing. Like, it was very, like, Roe v. Wade being overturned was immensely unpopular. It was not popular at all to overturn it. Roe v. Wade has always been a popular thing.
Yeah, that states are able to do this is a little like.
Or at least scholars have always said, like, it's a good thing to, like, Roe v. Wade is good.
And we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of women being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
Again, this should be such an easy layup for him, and he fumbled it. He should have, again, he started off pretty good of being like, what are you talking about? It was unpopular for them to overturn it. That's so dumb to say that it was popular. But then he's just like, there was a woman who was by an immigrant. And it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just be like, what are you talking about? Just talk about, the third trimesters being a very rare case in only the most extreme circumstances. He will get to the trimester stuff later, I know that, but he even fucks that up. Just don't bring up immigrants. You know that's a big thing for him, and when you give credence to that, you're just giving him the layup. This should have been a layup for you, and now it's a layup for him.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country.
A fucking layup. And he just passes it right to him.
It's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including...
Because here's the thing. He was right. At the end of his little statement, he was right that most, SA attempts are from people that the victim knew. Like, the number of immigrants who come in and R-word people is nothing compared to that. But when you give credence to that, when you know it's a big issue that he talks about a lot, you are giving him a layup that should have been easy for you. You fucked the bag up.
The founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't, but they would have, everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can
Do it now. If you care that much, do it now. You're in power. This isn't 2020 where you can promise all these things, but like, oh, when I'm reelected, I'll do it. You could do it now, and you don't. What are you fucking talking about? I don't know how much we're gonna watch through this. It's very long. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't really matter. It's an embarrassment. A lot of this is
Have illegally
nonsense.
crossed the southern border on your watch, overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that,
They did not. That's big. And I'm pretty much going to skip this entire thing because their views are very similar when it comes to this. And again, it's very dumb on Biden's case because, like, you're just playing into, like, oh my God. The worst thing you could do in this sort of circumstance is have the same opinion as the guy sitting right across from you, especially with how fucking far right he is, with how far right his viewer base is. Like, what are you doing? You're just giving credence to all the shit that he says. Why do you think, like, what's the play here? What's honestly the thought pattern here? The only people on the left who are going to agree with him are the fucking liberals who just agree with whatever the Democrat Party says because they have no actual, like, ideas of their own, no actual beliefs of their own. They just are just like, yes, Democrats, I'll do whatever you say. Like, that's the only thing that these people fucking, like, that's the only people who are going to agree with you. Why would the people who are more in line with Trump on a lot of other stuff suddenly agree with you just because you agree with them on this one thing? Also, why, if they really care all that much about this, why wouldn't they vote for the guy who's going to go even harder than you? It's a dumb play. When your own base, when your own side does not fucking agree with this. It's such a dumb play for him to give credence to all this migrant crime, migrant crisis bullshit. When it's not a big factor as they try to make it out to be, you're just literally giving your opponent's side a fucking layup. It is dumb bullshit.
In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
This is so fucking stupid. First of all, Hamas, literally his plan was one that Hamas already put forward. Hamas isn't the ones who are not agreeing to it. It's fucking Israel. They've already said they don't fucking agree with this plan. So he's just blatantly lying. Also, like the whole Iran thing, like it's already like Israel already like had attacks on Iran beforehand, so saying that is completely ridiculous. I know Trump's gonna say that like Iran was a big backer of Hamas, even though that's already been disproven too. It's just like this whole issue. It's literally like um Biden being like, well, I don't want them to kill civilians because I know it makes us look bad, but I still want them to be a apartheid state. Also, I don't really think he actually cares that much about deaths in all seriousness. I just think he knows that it makes them look bad. It's literally just like, who's worse in this case? And it's really hard to get a difference between that. We'll skip through that too. I just wanted that little part because like the only other thing that happens here, and he's continued to do it even after this, is that Trump is now using Palestinian almost as like a slur.
The only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
Quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see. I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it.
I mean, first of all, like this is all just bullshit. Like a lot of that has already been proven true. Secondly, when it comes to January 6th, obviously when you are painting these people who are, making this, completely normal, process when it comes to elections, when you're painting them as villains and saying that they rigged the election, you're villainizing them in front of your radical voter base who is willing to do anything for you. And you also painted your own VP as an enemy because you literally said, like, you basically said that if, with Pence being there, if the vote goes through and it's not in Trump's favor, he is essentially a traitor. And they stormed into the Capitol based on that belief, literally chanting, hang Mike Pence. It's insane. It's already been covered 1,000 times. But it is kind of funny that during his first part of that statement, he did not talk about it at all. Like, again, it's just a big issue for him that he can never really get right without just repeating the same bullshit over and over and over again. And I think the only reason he even, talked about that in terms of, the Nancy Pelosi stuff is because he was like, well, I got to say something for the last 80 seconds. So I'll just, ramble on about my bullshit, even though it doesn't make me look good. But again, he just doesn't, he literally tries not to talk about it for the first half.
34 felonies last month. You said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means?
And it looks like a Walking Dead zombie.
Go after your political opponents.
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon. at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably.
Oh, did I
numerous
miss him
other
calling
times. Should have
him
been
a convicted
before,
felon?
but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could
Oh
be
yeah, I forgot about that. It was probably like one of the only good things that Biden really said in his like little statement.
and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is,
Yeah.
he's what he's telling me.
Literally, like that was the one thing where it was just like, okay, Biden, okay, we're kind of there. You're kind of waking up, even though most people have probably already tuned out. So like, you kind of lost a lot of people already. But it's like it doesn't even get better from like that's probably his only high in this entire debate. But I do kind of like his Trump's response. We'll kind of get back to it. We'll let Biden finish up. But I thought it was just kind of funny.
It was simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned over statues. The idea
Pooped in Nancy Pelosi's office.
that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing to, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be a success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo.
A lot of the stuff that he's saying like Biden did, it's similar stuff to what Trump did. Trump would like call up people and be like, you know, we could do this for you if you do this for us. So like he wants to talk about a quid pro quo. Like, dude, you're also saying like you're also like, you know, saying a bunch of shit that you have done too. It's not exactly helping out your case. But it is kind of funny that his response to that, of Biden calling him a convicted felon, is literally just like, well, you know, we're all kind of convicted felons, you know. Your son's a convicted felon. You're going to be a convicted felon. Everyone's a convicted felon. Like, it's that sort of answer. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. But, like, it kind of is, in a way. There have been Republicans who have said that they're not going to vote for Trump anymore because of that. I don't think it's a necessarily big thing, but it is a negative for him, especially, you know, for at least like for some Republicans.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more.
So this comes after Trump, well, this comes after Biden referencing what Trump said about like certain soldiers, I forget during which war, where he called them losers and suckers. So this is where he decides to open with, in a question about childcare, is to go back to something from earlier. And spoiler alert, we never really get back to this.
More so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired everyone.
Yeah, that's how you know you're a good boss, when you fire a bunch of people. That's a metric of determining great leadership, when you get rid of almost everyone who doesn't agree with you.
Military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed?
Which is also funny because, well, for 2 cases, the Afghanistan situation, I will always say that that's something that I don't think Biden should get a lot of shit for because a lot of it had to deal with the shitty situation he was given regarding how Trump was handling Afghanistan beforehand. Secondly, why I think this is funny is that it has nothing to do with fucking childcare. Nothing.
Us have the worst border in the history of the world. Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from
This should
mental
be
institutions,
and
to be fired?
hopefully you would assume that this is a layup for Biden, being like you're not talking about what's actually being asked. You're holding on to this grievance of like nothing that has nothing to do with the current situation, which can always be reflected back onto you. And you know what would make him and what would make him look so much better is just by ignoring all this, just being like, "What are you talking about? We're trying to talk about childcare right now, and you're getting hung up on this. You're obviously like." He looks like this makes Trump look bad. He's not talking about the issue. He's getting hung up.
Or anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste
Should
a
be
lot
a
of time on
layup.
this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he
Also, that's what happens when you try to have a similar take on the migrant crisis as the Republicans. Is that Trump's just going to be like, "You're not going far enough. I would go way further." So anyone who actually does care about this issue is just going to vote for him. It's just going back to what I said earlier regarding Biden and the border. It's so dumb for like him to have this take that he does with like limiting asylum seekers when all you're doing is playing into a voter base that does not like you inherently and is not going to vote for you. Like, okay, like because imagine if Bernie Sanders was on stage with Trump instead of Biden, and he was talking about a universal income. He really broadcasted the fact he's like, "I am the candidate who cares about a universal income, who wants to make lives better for the common people by allowing them to have more money that they can spend so they can afford a place of living, just have like a living wage." And then Trump was just like, "Yeah, I agree on that case." Do you think that's gonna make Trump look better, or the guy who literally made his whole thing being like, "I want a universal living wage"? This is all hypothetical, but still, like, you need to, like, before you get into this sort of situation, you really need to reflect and be like, "Okay, what is my opponent's take on this? Okay, if I need to, like, have a different approach, or else I'm just feeding into their, like, Trump's whole thing is that he is the anti-immigration candidate. Don't play into that. Just don't. That's literally the one thing. That's the one thing you had to do is just not play into it because he's gonna go further than you. So anybody who's actually cares about it, who actually agrees on your stance with this, that, there's so many migrants coming in and they're causing crime and shit like that, they're not gonna vote for you. They're gonna vote for the guy who made it his entire thing that he's gonna be tough on it. So stupid.
wins this election,
And again, this is not about childcare. It's not.
our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We are the most admired country in the world. We're the United.
Literally, just talk about childcare. Just talk about childcare. That's all you have to do right now. He gave you a layup by not talking about it at all. Just talk about it. Just show that you have some level of competency of being like, "I'm actually going to address this issue and give you a solution." He doesn't.
United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they had meetings and they voted who was the worst president in American history, one through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong. wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work, and we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad.
Literally,
And
Jake Tapper being like, let's get this back on track. Talk about childcare. He's not. Neither of them are fucking talking about it. Look, this is an easy question. This should be an easy question, and they just can't get over themselves.
rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back.
What did that do for the common person? And here's the thing, that is a very stupid talking point, especially when he already laid out, like, the one thing that he's going to do is just be like, I'm going to charge them more. Like, I'm going to have them pay their fair share. Which I don't even believe he would actually do. I honestly don't believe he would do that. But after him saying that, going back to, and just talking about business, like, he only talks about the common person when he's talking about how bad Biden would be on it, but the entire time he's talking about how good his tax cuts would be, he's always talking about business. That should just go to show he doesn't actually give a fuck about a common person when he's talking about these tax cuts. It's only there to benefit the 1%. Just bringing this up. Again, and not fucking about childcare. Again, this should be an easy fucking question to answer.
The worst president in history by far, and everybody.
And here's the thing, I don't suspect him to actually give an honest answer about that. We saw that already. Him being hung up on this is pretty understandable because it's Trump. Why is this motherfucker on the right not saying shit? Why is he feeding into this? Show some level of competency.
How's it?
President Biden?
A small
The fact
amount.
of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming in the country. You know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that we're importing. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he somehow helped the middle class. The middle class has been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not...
Like, I listened to this entire thing live. This was like, and I suspected a lot of stuff that came before it to be kind of like dumb, grievance shit. But the fact that neither of them could answer this one question, what are you going to do about childcare? That was when I was just like, this is over. This is over. And we haven't even gotten to the worst part of it. The part that literally almost made me tear my hair out.
In fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are at the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden.
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized as being the youngest person in politics.
Yeah, I spent most of my career being criticized for the youngest person in politics. That was like 3 fucking decades ago. Most young voters nowadays you were in politics before most young voters were even born. So him trying to use that as defense, like, oh, people criticize me for being the youngest person, doesn't make fucking sense. Like, dude, yeah, time happened, dude. You should probably have retired by now. It probably would have been best.
I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent.
I made a comment to this to one of my buddies before this debate. I was like, Biden needs to come into this debate like he is in the 90s and he's fighting for the crime bill. That's the energy he needs to bring. That's what we need. I did not I didn't truly expect that was what we were gonna get. I was just kind of making a joke, but like,
Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions, he couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test, and you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8. But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
President Trump, we're going to
21
Let's not.
I mean, okay, starting off, with the whole like physical thing, they're both dying. They're both close. They are both close to death. So like them arguing about who's more fit, who's, you know, more mentally sound, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Also, why the fuck are they arguing about golf? This is the part that I was talking about earlier. Why are they fucking doing this? This was literally my hair pull out moment. I was just like, why? Shut up. Why are you talking about golf? The only person who gives a fuck about this is some like old white dude who just spends all of his day golfing just so he can run away from his kids and his wife. That's the only person who gives a fuck about this at this point. When you're talking about fucking golf and 6 handicap, who gives a fuck? Who gives a flying fuck? And again, him playing into this geriatric Walking Dead looking motherfucker, playing into it does not make him look good. And I don't understand why he thinks that. I just had to leave it here. Like, that's what I had to do. This is just nonsense. The biggest problem here is Biden. In this debate, Biden is obviously the biggest problem. Because while Trump does lie, he does go over his personal grievances, does not really talk about the topics all that much. That's expected of him. It's Donald Trump. We know that. We know that's what he does. But why is Biden playing into it? Why does he sound like he's a fucking crypt keeper? This is definitely something where it doesn't matter how you spin it, the left looks terrible from this. And I think the best thing they could do in this scenario is replace him. Like, just replace him. Like, Gavin Newsom would probably do a lot better in this circumstance. And anyone trying to spin this into well, actually, Trump looks worse in this scenario is fucking dumb. Any liberal who's trying to make this seem like a win is absolutely fucking stupid.
Donald Trump destroyed Joe Biden in the debate. No! Trump killed him. Did you watch it?
I did watch it.
So then it should be obvious Trump won.
Donald Trump lied for 2.5 hours and Joe Biden called
No!
him.
I couldn't even understand Joe. Could you?
I did understand. Your ears were.
Not when it comes to listening to BS. It's obvious neither of them care about black people. Why are you on Joe's
I'm not
side?
on nobody's side here. But we can't ignore the fact that Donald Trump straight up lied about things that are on video.
Yes, we
Joe
can!
Biden called him out. Joe Biden seemed like he wanted to fight him, and Trump couldn't even make eye contact.
Here's the thing. Did Trump destroy Biden? Now, if you looked at the polls, yes. But again, like, yeah, Trump didn't look good out there, but he did the Trump stuff. His base is going to fall for that anyways. It doesn't matter. What obviously matters is what the other person looks like. When you have someone who is a serial liar, does the thing that Trump usually does, you need someone who looks competent opposing him, someone who is professional, someone who can actually, say the things they want to say and not stumble on the words, someone you can actually fucking listen to, trying to play defense, but also being like, I don't know. It's like, of course this stuff matters. CNN literally put up a poll, and it was 60% thought Trump won, 30% thought Biden won. That obviously plays a factor into it. You can't just come out and be like, well, Trump did the thing that we all knew he was going to do. That means Joe Biden's right. Also, Joe Biden did not do that great when it came to covering up his lies. That's not true at all. Even Biden said some stuff that was wrong, like when it came to the Border Patrol endorsing him, that was wrong. Trying to play like defense for Biden in this case just makes you look stupid. I don't understand this. Like, I don't understand making this. Like, I feel like if you are on the left and your big focus of this is being like, well, actually, Trump lied a lot during this debate, it's not a good look. It's not, and it's not the primary thing we should be focused on. What should be focused on is getting someone else. Maybe it wasn't the right idea to just let Biden go completely, almost unopposed in the primaries, and maybe look for some other options. Maybe someone who is younger, someone who actually has progressive ideas that's not just a Trump light in a lot of cases, like with the border crisis, like what's going on in Israel. Maybe find someone who isn't just trying to, you know, go for a centrist audience on stuff that your opponent has definitely made himself like the face of. Like when it comes, like what I said earlier with like, the border crisis, Trump has made himself the face of that issue. So if you're playing into that, what the centrist is going to see, like what the swing voters are going to see is, oh, you're just giving credence to what this guy has been saying all along. Why would I vote for you on this issue? Like, it's so dumb to play into that. Like, obviously, the main focus should be trying anything and everything to get someone else on the left for the Democratic Party. Anything other than that, like, yes, Trump lied a lot. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. That's no surprise. It's not news that he did that. We all knew he was going to do that. But the problem is that people did suspect that Biden was not going to be able to, perform well during this debate. And people on the left didn't listen. They were like, no, he's fine. He's fine. And now they're just coming to that conclusion very late. And now you have to do something. Either you got to pump him full of something to keep him awake, or, keep him up and running. Or you need to get someone else. You need to get someone younger, someone who can actually, because the thing is that like Trump's age is also showing. He does not have the same fury that he once did. Like if you look at 2016 Trump to now, night and day. He's slower. He just doesn't. It's just like the same talking points over and over again. As we saw with this, he just kind of ran away from a lot of the issues until like he realized like, well, I had to say something about this. It's just like if you just get someone younger who can go, and here's the thing, like if you just get someone younger who can actually, get up there and just be somewhat competent, they have a chance. That's it. And they just need to be better at certain issues than Trump, about issues that people actually care about. That's it. That's all you really need to do. And Biden is far away not that. He is not that at all. You need to get someone else. But that's all I really had to say about the matter. It's just a fucking joke. It's just such a big joke.